about to go political. So, if you think that truth is more important than party, be sure to hit that subscribe button because you do not want to miss a moment of this movement where we take back the narrative from these multi-million-dollar corporations who lie to us and democratize information and seek truth. Of course, if you like this particular story, it is about congressional corruption, and you want to hear more about congressional corruption or corruption in general, be sure to hit that like button because here on Girls Gone Political, it is a democracy, and your wish is my command. Today we have a pretty crazy story about congressional corruption and the military-industrial complex. These military contractors, their business is war. And even if we're not in a war, they need to continue to grow their profits. So their motives are not to help our government protect itself. They're for-profit corporations, and they don't really care if they eat away at more and more of our budget during a time where we have so many crises at home that maybe we don't need to be going and randomly bombing Syria. Just, a thought. Boeing and Lockheed Martin, about 20 years ago, were bidding for a contract from Congress to build a new stealth fighter jet. So this new stealth fighter jet was meant to replace the F-16s that were older and more bulky, and they said they weren't very efficient. They were very costly, so they wanted to create a new, better, lighter stealth fighter jet. Then we have some congressional delegates who thought it was a great opportunity to be able to make themselves look better to their voters by adding some more jobs in their home states. The delegates from Texas, they fought really, really hard to make sure that Lockheed Martin was the company who got the contract. And the Missouri and Washington delegates, they wanted to make sure that Boeing got the contract. So they fought very, very hard, but ultimately the delegates from Texas, they managed to get the contract to go to Lockheed Martin. That immediately meant that the delegates from Washington and Missouri, they wanted to make sure that they got some of these jobs to their states, which is a good thing to want. But you'll see that it's not done in the best way for our country as a whole. So they decided, okay, well, since we didn't get that contract, we're going to write a bill that forces these two private companies to split the work. Well, that bill was defeated, so the Texas delegates, they're very happy, and they won this amazing contract that is a 20-year contract to develop advanced military stealth jets. The delegates who were fighting for Boeing, they decide, okay, well, we have to get a few contracts. So they got contracts for Boeing to make KC-767 tankers, radar jamming planes, and C-17 cargo planes. So either way, they decide, okay, we got to get jobs in there, so we're going to take more of our budget and create these planes, whether we need them or not. These Congress people, they're also getting money from Lockheed Martin and Boeing to make sure that they continue giving those contracts out to these military providers. And so these incentives for these politicians to act are pretty strong incentives. You have a bunch of money that is up for the taking, and you can look really good while you're doing it. They decided to go ahead and make these F-35s, and I'm sure you're very curious to know how that turned out. Well, it turned out terribly. The F-16s were so heavy. They were 17 tons. And that was part of the problem. They're like, these stealth fighter planes are so heavy. We need something that is lightweight, that doesn't cost as much. And so they decide to get these F-35s, but Lockheed Martin, they want some more money, so they end up packing so much technology into these F-35s that they end up weighing 25 tons, which is definitely not lighter. It definitely was not cheaper either. I bet you can't imagine how much each and every plane costs. 100 million per plane. So now we failed on two levels. It's not lighter, and it's also not cheaper. So was it more efficient? Well, of course not. It was not efficient at all. These planes, they ended up being full of bugs. Some of them caught fire before they could even use them. They had all sorts of issues, and so it caused even more delays because then the military actually had to send these planes that weren't working back to have them repaired or replaced. So it caused a massive amount of waste. Dan Ward, he was the program manager for the Air Force. He said that they were maintenance heavy, buggy, and unreliable. So pretty much they were the exact opposite of what we had originally wanted and needed for our design. So usually if you have a business that takes a bunch of your money, I mean 100 million per plane, and gives you trash, well, you usually don't turn around and buy more things from them, but that would make way too much sense, and we're talking about government. So now they're saying, oh, we need to award another contract that is just like this because the F-35 is too heavy now. Now remember, we thought the 17 tons was too heavy, and so we ended up with 25 tons. I bet if we go ahead and award this next contract, we'll probably end up with a 50-ton fighter jet because it doesn't seem like what we order and what we get has anything to do with each other. But Congress is going, well, that makes sense. We're gonna go ahead and throw more of our money into these military contracting companies who really, they're just buying off our politicians. It wasn't just Lockheed Martin's fault. It was also some congressional decision making that caused this complete debacle, which guess what the total price tag for the United States was for the taxpayer? $1 trillion. And let me tell you, we could be giving free college. We could really be helping the citizens of this country for $1 trillion. But yet, we're thinking about giving another contract to these same people. It is really a mess. It's an absolute mess. Congress had another reason to want these companies to make money other than the kickbacks they were getting, and that's the job program. But instead of explaining to their constituents, hey, we have all these jobs coming, we've already okayed the program, it's something you can really look out for and you can thank us for it. Instead of doing that, they decided to sign something allowing concurrency. And what that means is that the manufacturing process was allowed to begin without these companies completing the proper testing. So of course all of these planes were buggy and unreliable because they didn't even have to run the tests. And the reason why Congress agreed to this, which was a terrible thing because it causes many more delays, like I was talking about, the Air Force had to send these planes back when they got planes that didn't work. These Congress people, they wanted jobs immediately. And so instead of doing what was good for the country and what was good for the taxpayer, they decided that they were going to sign this concurrency agreement, which allowed them to look better in the short term and allowed them to screw us over in the long term. So, of course, we end up with all these planes that are catching on fire, that aren't working properly. The Air Force actually ordered 1,800 planes. And do you want to guess how many planes they actually got? 250. Can you imagine ordering 1,800 of something and only getting 250 of those things and then deciding that's the company that I want to go with again? Let's give that company another $1 trillion. But of course, the deficit, we cannot hurt our deficit. No, no, no. We can't spend any money on programs that are good for the citizens here in this country, that are good for the average Americans, for the average American worker. Oh, no, no, no. We just want to throw this money away to these military contractors for planes that we don't need, that don't work, that they didn't even bother supplying. So you must wonder, how many jobs did this create? Well, they didn't even do a good job with that, because over 46 different states, they only created 146,000 jobs. 146,000 jobs might sound like a lot in one state, but in 46 states for $1 trillion, we would have done better if we just handed out the money on the street and asked them to go and help with infrastructure or something that actually benefited America and Americans. But the fact of the matter is, our country isn't supposed to benefit us. Not anymore. Now it's made to benefit corporate interests, and there is nothing more corporate to America than killing other people. General Charles Brown of the Air Force, he said, oh, well, these planes are Ferraris. We need to buy more planes to use so that we don't use the Ferraris all the time, because Ferraris are only supposed to be used sometimes. And it's like, well, then why in the world would you spend $1 trillion on planes that you have to turn around and spend more money on more planes so that you don't use the planes that you just spent $1 trillion on? Over 20 years, we just continued shoveling money into this doomed project. And this is a huge problem in Congress. The incentives are all wrong. The incentives are to do the wrong thing. And of course, if you are getting millions of dollars from a huge, huge corporation like Lockheed Martin, of course, you're going to write the contracts in a way that protects Lockheed Martin. So these Congress people, they once again chose something that made them look better, the immediate jobs, but they traded that for working planes. It's really one of the more stunning things to come out this year, to find out that after 20 years and $1 trillion on some plane that we didn't really even need, we didn't even get that plane. And we didn't even get the things that we wanted after $1 trillion. And we're going to turn around and give the same company who already screwed us over the chance to do it again. And this is how it goes. This is how politics work now in this country. We have these contractors take away taxpayer dollars, the Congress people get kickbacks, and then when the American public needs help, you get screwed because the deficit, we have to be careful for the deficit. But really, they have to be careful to make sure the trillions of dollars that the government is spending can go into their donors' pockets. It's really quite a shame. We need to start incentivizing Congress to behave in ways that actually protect the American public. And a huge part of that is campaign finance reform. And until we have that, these companies that have millions of dollars to buy our politicians, well, they're going to keep getting contracts that allow them to fail miserably, screw over the American public, take your tax dollars, and then just keep getting more and more contracts. Usually, if you completely fail your one and only task that you get paid $1 trillion for, in a sane, fully democratic society, they would never get a contract from the United States of America again. But I'll let you guess what's going to happen to Lockheed Martin. They're going to be just fine. The question is, are we going to be okay to be able to get out of this tragic economic situation where so many Americans are hurting, where so many Americans are going hungry, where all of these Americans have lost their jobs and so they don't have health care during a pandemic? But don't worry, we have $1 trillion new jet design, of which we only got 250 out of the 1,800 that we were supposed to get. Aren't you guys happy? Don't you think that's better than food on your table? We have the foundations for an incredible democracy, but we have to hold our politicians to account. We deserve better, and we can get better politicians, because it's time to primary pretty much everyone. Don't forget, hit that subscribe button.